Ladies and gentlemen, I bet you never thought this day would come. A random Tuesday in November, just a couple of days before Thanksgiving, hot off the heels of a just putrid offensive performance against the rival Cleveland Browns. Mike Tomlin and or Art Rooney II convened high atop a hillside in Pittsburgh and decided it was finally time to put an end to what was perhaps the worst, most embarrassing experiment in the modern history of the Pittsburgh Steelers. Ladies and gentlemen, Matt Canada is gone. He can hurt you no longer. He will never be an offensive coordinator in the NFL ever again. And I just can't believe this. I just can't. This was shocking to wake up to. I thought it was a joke tweet when I first saw it, and man, I just cannot believe my luck. Like I said, just 2 days after losing to the Cleveland Brownies, and really a pathetic performance. And because it's such a unique occasion, I am here not usual, but like usual on Monday and like usual on Thursday, with both of my typical guests, Mr. Gage Ryan and Mr. Steel Flyers. There's a legendary panel of 5-star denizens here to talk to you about the Matt Canada firing. Welcome, gentlemen. How are you guys doing?
Great.
I
was expecting him to follow me on there.
I'm doing just about as high on the mountaintop as you could possibly be. I mean, I get to sit here with the people that make 5-star matchup. Okay, so I don't care what any of y'all say, man. This is 5-star day for me as far as I'm concerned, right? So this is win-win for me all day. Okay,
Listen.
So to get all three of us all on the same screen, man, I'll tell you what, something seriously had to happen for that to make this, for this to be the situation.
And like a State of the Union, but in a good way.
It is. This reminds me of, do you remember the moment when they announced a press conference and Obama came out to say that they had killed Osama bin Laden?
You are not comparing Matt Canada to Osama bin Laden right now, Steve. Jesus Christ.
Listen, okay? All I'm saying is neither Osama bin Laden or Matt Canada have ever coordinated a game in the NFL where the offense got 400 yards of offense. That's just a fact. Just simple, true,
Wow.
honest.
All right.
They have the same number of 400-yard games as an offensive coordinator. The difference is
Zero.
Matt Canada did it for 44 games in the NFL. That is just putrid. I want to just jump off the bat just to, like you say, State of the Union. Daniel Valenti, everybody knows him on Twitter. I hope he's a great follow. I'm going to quote some stats from his Twitter. Matt Canada spent 44 games as the Steelers' offensive coordinator. Under him, they produced 0 games with 400 plus yards, 1 game with 300 plus passing yards, 2 games with 30 plus points, 7 games with 2 plus passing touchdowns.
Dude, come on. Come on, bring it back.
2 more.
Come
Okay.
on.
27 games with 20 first downs or less, and 28 games with 28 games with 20 points or less. That means they topped 20 points in 16 of 44 games that he was the offensive coordinator.
So he had 44 games, right? So that's fitting because Pittsburgh Steelers leads the NFL in 3 and outs at a 45% clip. So he's a little better than his first
terrible.
3 plays or whatever. Oh my gosh.
He is
Wow.
terrible.
So I'm going to ask you guys what I've been asked all day, because like my phone and everything has been blowing up, right, ever since this whole, because I agree. When I first saw this, I was like, yeah, this isn't happening. This is a joke. And then there was
I thought it was.
yeah, right. And then there was the thing that came out from Mike Tomlin, and I was like, yeah, anybody can forge that. I was like, oh no, that came from the Pittsburgh Steelers Instagram account. Okay, that's for real. All right. So, Gage, I'm going to ask you first. What do you okay, look, we all know that everybody's to blame and everything else like that, but what was your first reaction when you heard about Canada getting let go? I mean, we've all talked about it. We've all, in all of the shows that we've done with 5 Star and everything else like that. But what was your first initial reaction of that fact? I mean, we all were like, okay, yeah, but.
Yeah. Well, so yeah, actually that was how I started off, was the yeah, but, because at first is that I thought, I always get his name screwed up. Here's our quarterback coach that everyone says like the offense won't change at all if we were to hire him as our SC.
Mike Sullivan. He's the same as the Penguins head coach. That's why I remember.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So yeah, Mike Sullivan, and I mean that's kind of what everybody was assuming would happen. That's what I think I even tweeted that's literally what was going to happen. And so I wasn't honestly all that excited. And then I heard that our running backs coach, the guy who's actually done a pretty damn good job with Najee and Jalen the last 2 seasons or so, I'm slightly more interested now. I'm actually slightly more optimistic than I would have been. Actually, a lot more optimistic I would have been had we just brought our quarterbacks coach into the fold and not really done any more. I was going to say done any more research, but if we hadn't put any more effort into it than that, because I think we all were expecting that. So it feels good to get proven wrong by the Steelers for a change.
It does, So my response to that would be, I'm shocked, but elated. I think I think that I was really rattled by the Najee Harris comments in the post game. I think everybody that's listened,
or lack of comments.
Well, yeah. I think everybody that's listened to me talk knows I have absolute reverence for Najee Harris as a leader and as a speaker, and like I genuinely I genuinely just like really respect what he has to say. I think he's thoughtful and brings up poignant things, right? And so I the way that he responded to some of those questions after the game, I thought that was very telling and very exemplary of a team that was really on the precipice of a borderline mutiny from the offensive side, because you saw Deontay getting into an argument where Broderick Jones almost had to separate him from Tomlin, I believe it was. Um, you know, I don't know. It seems like none of these guys want to directly blame Pickett. I think they all know he's trying, and I think they're cognizant of being at that position, being a young player, being put into that position with a poor coordinator, all that. I think that they're willing to be patient there, and I think they also know Mitch Trubisky is not going to come in and be any better. I think they want to see Pickett be the guy he was last year. I was thinking about this a lot. Like, what happened to that guy we saw against the Jets who threw three interceptions, but he's like running into the end zone. He's getting up. It's in the intro. It's in the intro for this season. That shot of Pickett where he's like, yeah, like he like scores the rushing touchdown. He's like, let's go. I remember when he got popped against the Bills, they were getting killed, and he got up and he was all like,
feisty and fighting back.
yeah. Where is that guy? Because this year, you watch a guy who, I think I've been very, very, very fair to Pickett in general, especially last week. Remember, I'm pounding the table. Guys, they're 6-3. But I do think you're seeing a guy who it doesn't seem like he's really having a heck of a lot of fun playing football. He doesn't seem like a guy who is out there really just playing ball. It feels like he's just constantly having to think.
Working.
And yeah. And I don't think that's a recipe for success. So
Not seeing him smile much lately either. Have
no, not at all. Not at all.
Even when you're winning. Even when you're winning.
No, because it just feels hard. And I thought that, again, to go back to Najee, I think he said the words that are on everybody's mind the last month, which is like, he said something to the effect of, we can keep winning the way we are. And, you can say like, yeah, it's still a good record. He's like, but at the end of the day, like, you're not going to keep doing this. And even if you do, what's the point? Basically is what he said. And I think that that's how a lot of Steelers fans feel. And so, yeah, my initial reaction is that I'm hyped and excited that they had the guts to do this. I'm skeptical that it's going to make much of a difference this year. But I think it can't hurt. I just think it's just clear. It's abundantly clear.
Yeah.
He just was not good at the job. That's all.
I mean, okay. All right.
Yeah.
So when we all found out it was real, we all realized, all right, okay. Now, then the next big thing was the anticipation of the Mike Tomlin press conference, because it was Tuesday. Tuesday is always a press conference. I have to say this was another press conference that I was a little bit disappointed in, because it was one of the shorter ones of the year, and B, we didn't
really.
even
I didn't
get
think
to
it was
hear-
that short. I thought he went for a while.
Okay, but we didn't get any information about any of the players that were hurt.
Well,
I mean, he said his piece and then opened it up for questions, and that was it. We didn't get the usual, and we got the usual diatribe about the other team. You know what I mean? But for the most part, he basically was talking about the other team and then opened it up for questions. He never really gave us any of the other information that we normally get, like what the injuries were, who's banged up, who's going to be this, that, and everything. We didn't get any of that. That's what I mean by shorter than usual, because we didn't get the usual Tuesday information. And he cut everybody off who asked him any real question about, well, why didn't you do this sooner? You had a bye week. You could have done this sooner. What was the extra 4 weeks do for you? Nothing.
Yeah.
Like, Tomlin doesn't like hard questions, though. We all know that.
That's
Right.
true. That's true. But I'll give him a little bit of credit in that, like, I think what we saw there was, a guy who we know is a master politician, right? They say whatever you want about Tomlin. That is an objective truth.
Facts. No, that's facts.
No,
Yeah,
I
that's
say
facts. You're
whatever
straight up.
side you want. So let's follow this, okay? All right. So I'm gonna do a little investigative reporting here. There's 85 people watching the show right now, guys. Awesome. Thanks for hanging
Oh
out.
man, hit the
Uh,
hit the thumbs up,
yeah, hit
man.
that
Hit
like.
the
Hit that
hit
like.
that
Get that
like.
to
You know.
30 or 50 or so. Let's go. Come on. Anyway, so I've been thinking about this all day. I've been thinking about this whole thing. So this morning, right, the news breaks. It's a statement from the Pittsburgh Steelers that says Mike Tomlin specifically. It says Mike
Yeah,
Tomlin
yeah.
relieved Matt Canada of his duties as offensive coordinator. Um, Earlier today, Jerry Dulac, who I think if you've been plugged into the Pittsburgh media scene for any amount of time, he's as close to an in-building mouthpiece as there is.
I mean, he's the man.
Yeah,
You know,
no,
ever since Ed went away, ever since Ed retired.
exactly. And Ed was always a more cantankerous version of that anyway.
All right, I'll give you that. Yeah, I'll
Right?
give you that.
Right? So more challenging, more of a, Dulac is very much just
Confrontational.
literally whatever the ownership wants to get out. Almost always he's the guy who has those. So he tweets this morning that it was Art Rooney who decided to and fired Matt Canada. So that's interesting to me. Then Tomlin, using a great quote, by the way, I want to give him credit for this. He said, "Leadership is lonely," which I think is a tremendous quote. But he took full credit for all of it. It was his decision, blah, 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 blah. But then also, I don't know about that because it was your decision, right? But you didn't even have time to tell the players before you went and did your press conference. What? The player's first coach who's always like, I don't know, that doesn't really read with me. You want your players to learn about this from a press conference or from Twitter. Not even the quarterback. He didn't have a conversation with Kenny Pickett about this yesterday. I don't know, man. I just think that that's kind of suspicious. I don't really buy it. I'm not really sure what Tomlin has to gain other than flexing his muscle that he is the final be all end all decision maker, but he was unwilling to say that there was, he wouldn't point to any specific point as to what made him decide this other than he thought they were still playing like they were in September, and obviously they're not in September.
So
I don't
you
know.
caught that too, right? You caught that too in the press conference where he said that too. Or, we're still playing September ball.
Yeah.
And I did catch on to that quote where leadership is lonely, but man, so is losing.
Yeah.
Okay. And so I understand what you're trying to say. Leadership is lonely, but man, you got to own up to it, right? You just got to own up to it, man. In this day and age, if you can't own up to it, then, and I think that's what the biggest thing is that nobody wants to admit that they did something wrong. And hey, I'm sorry, we was screwed up. All right, let's try this again.
So
you know what I mean? Like,
yeah. So then my question, I'll pose this to Gage, bring you in on this, right? Like, what does Tomlin get credit for this move, or does Tomlin get blame for taking too long to do this? Like, I think a lot of people could say the same thing we said with Pickett, which was we all knew he was going to come in and be the starter last year, and they had the perfect opportunity to do it at the bye week, didn't do it, and then coming out of the bye week, he puts them in at halftime because he thought Trubisky was and it just never made any sense. And I think you can argue right now, like Eddie Faulkner, I don't know, good for him, but is this a fair audition tape for him? I don't know. Does he get credit or does he get blame, or how do you see it?
I don't know. I'm just tired of running on the hamster wheel. Actually, no. Come to think of it, I know you used that in the chat earlier.
Yeah,
But I mean, when it comes to the Steelers, I'm very tired of the hamster wheel, and I just feel like we make a lot of the same mistakes over and over and expect different results, which is the definition of insanity. I will say though that my biggest defense of Kenny Pickett and of this offense, and really of this entire team, is that they suck, but they get it done when they need to.
Yeah.
And that 3rd and 10 throw to Deontay, which I don't know if it would have put us in field goal range, but it would have gotten us close. It would have kept the offense moving. If that 3rd and 10 gets completed towards the end of the game, the Browns don't get the ball back. They don't kick that field goal. We probably kick the field goal, and we probably go on to win that game. We're 7-3, and then I'm sitting up here saying, hey, our offense sucked, but again, we got it done when it mattered. That's how gentle and fragile legacies can be sometimes.
It's
And
true.
And probably
that,
Matt Canada would still have his job.
No, I mean
oh my
that's the
god.
truth. That's the truth. You're absolutely right. Okay. We rarely have a 3-person panel, right? Usually it's just 2 of us. So we have 3 people, so we can actually do a vote. Both of you, I'll go to just one word answer, Steel Flyers, and Engage. If they scored on that last possession and the Steelers won this game by a field goal, is Matt Canada employed right now? Everything else is exactly the same.
I think so.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, I do too.
I think so too, yeah.
I do too.
Because really I think that was the only thing that was keeping him afloat to begin with, was the fact that, hey, they're 6-3.
Yeah.
Like nobody was like, no, I don't get how they're 6-3, but they're still winning, so if it ain't broke,
Yeah.
okay, you know what I mean? But here's the thing. You could tell that there were certain plays that were being called at the line of scrimmage that were not called in the huddle from Matt Canada. You could tell there were certain ones of those. Those seem to be the more successful plays for Kenny Pickett than the ones that Matt Canada was calling. Do you know what I'm saying? And then this whole thing that, I mean, you know, you went into this whole thing about Matt Canada and the whole 9 yards, about his stats and everything else like that. You know, look, he had Ben Roethlisberger playing for him.
Right.
Okay? So there's too much evidence that points to this being a Canada situation. Do you know what
Sure.
I mean? You know what I'm saying? And when you have your own players coming out and saying things, that's never good, man. That's never good. And I'll be honest with you, I was really thrown by this, but I still think that if they would have won that game, if they would have done exactly what you said, right? If they would have scored, or if they would have gotten that field goal, if they would have made that catch, there's so many keys to this pod. There's so many gears and cogs to this machine that if you have one that's missing a tooth, then everything else has to work harder and not as smart to try to compensate for that broken tooth or that bad piece of cog or whatever the case is, right? So there's been so much overcompensation. There's been so much protection of Kenny Pickett. There's been so much because of the whole meta thing, because of the whole offensive thing just being so, I mean, historically wretched. How else can you say that? How else can you say that? You know what I mean?
No, yeah, I agree with that wholeheartedly. I mean, it's just clear that this was what had to happen. But now, here's the thing though that I want
Well,
to.
what do you think? What do you think? Do you think if the Cleveland, if we would have won that game, do you think Matt Canada would still have his job?
Yes, I do, but I don't think
Okay.
I would say that's 100%. I think that because
I
my
agree, yeah.
feeling is that this came from above, and I think part of the reason that I was framing this as such a big game all week last week, partially because I think it is a big game, because people are still going to look at the records and say, oh, they're still in a good spot. But you know what's going to kill them? That loss to the Texans is going to kill them, because the Texans are making the playoffs. CJ Stroud is really good. They're going to end up having a head-to-head tiebreaker going the same.
Or something.
Yeah, because, Cleveland, I don't know. Like, I don't believe in them with that quarterback. But still, they're 7-3, man. Like, that's, you're probably making the playoffs. Like, so they only have to win 3 more games to win 10 games. That's, it's possible. Everybody in this league stinks. Anybody can beat anybody. And so, you have them, and then you have Houston, and then you have Buffalo, who, sleep on them all you want. They got freaking Josh Allen, man. I'm betting on them to win 10 games. Like, I'm sorry. I don't care. So I do think
Well, they did the same thing last week. They fired their offensive coordinator last week.
Well, and I think that that's part of why this happened. I really do. I genuinely believe that. I believe that if that never happened, this wouldn't happen. I really do. I think it gave Art Rooney that little bit of an itch on the trigger finger, and they decided to do it. I don't think Mike Tomlin. I genuinely don't believe Mike Tomlin decided to do this. I think Mike Tomlin probably said, "Okay, I'm fine with it if it's what you want to do." But I don't think Mike Tomlin decided to do this, and I don't know. How you want to look at that is how you want to look at that. I don't know. It's interesting. The whole thing, it really is.
Well, so now we've gone through that mess. So the shoe is dropped, right? The shoe is dropped now. We've gone over the cliff now, right? Still, we've splatted at the bottom.
Yes.
Right? So we're just laying there as a big, giant, gooey mess. What is next for this team? Because all Mike Tomlin wanted to talk about was preparing for the Bengals. So how do you prepare for the Bengals if you don't even tell your team that your offensive coordinator is no longer with the team? So anyway, Mike, you go on ahead there and prepare for them Bengals. But what do we do now moving forward? How does this team, they still legitimately have a shot at something. This team legitimately on paper has talent, could potentially do something, quote unquote. Where do we go from here? That's the question I posed to both of you guys. Where do we go from here?
Yeah, Gage, why don't you go first?
I don't know, man. I think just above 500, because you can't go 500 in the NFL nowadays. I think that's our destiny for the foreseeable future until something changes at the top.
Right. So you don't even think they're gonna end up winning 10 games?
Maybe they do. I predicted at the very beginning of the season that we'd win 10 games, that we would win 10 games. And my predictions, I predicted 2 games wrong this year, but predicting 2 games wrong also means that we could still get 10-7. So I guess we'll see what happens. But I don't know, man. I'm not super optimistic, but I'm also not super in the gutter. I am, dare say, rated 500.
Yeah, I think I still think if I had to bet on it that I think they're gonna end up winning 10 games. To me that's what going. I mean, that's not even really that great. That would be going 4-4. Or no, do they have 8 games left?
Something like that.
They have 7 games left, so that would be going.
Left.
That would be going. I still can't get the new records in my head. They're all messed up still. So
Right.
they're 6-4, right? So they would go 4-3. 4-3.
Yeah. So it'll be 10-7.
Yeah. So I mean, that's not really spectacular with their schedule to go 4-3. They'd have to go 5-2 to win 11 games. Do I think they're going to really improve that much? No, I don't. I think they'll get a little bit better. I think this week you'll see a little bit of a boost. I think they'll go out and beat Cincinnati. This is coaching. Oftentimes coaching changes are in mid-season, to me, like kind of more symbolic than they are about the actual person you're replacing. I think we see that in other sports, right? I know, Steele, you see that in hockey a good bit, right? And basketball especially. There'll be like good teams sometimes in basketball will fire their coach like midway through the season. And sometimes it'll give them a boost. I think the Lakers did that one of the years with LeBron, if I remember.
Right. Right.
And so sometimes, in other sports you see it. Obviously, you're never gonna. I mean, look at the Raiders. The Raiders are a perfect case. They fired Josh McDaniels.
And they won what? They rattled off what, 2 wins?
And they're in it. And they're right in it.
How you doing, right?
I mean, so I think it'll make a little bit of a difference, and hopefully it'll help Pickett a little bit. At least have a nice strong finish to this year. Maybe have a couple 2 touchdown games, God forbid. But yeah.
Okay, so here's the whole ball of wax in a nutshell. With Matt Canada, you had players that were not schemed into the game plan that should have been. You had players that were schemed into the game plan that never should have been. Tell me you're featuring Gunner. How many games did we feature Gunner?
What about Ryan Switzer?
Or Ryan Switzer or Calvin Austin III. You know, look, I'm not trying to say that these guys aren't talented, but why are we featuring them when we have the plethora of guys that we have on this team? Dante Johnson, Pickens, Hayward, Fryermuth.
Fryermuth, Fryermuth is a real mystery. I mean, I know he's missed some time this year. I put it in the show. I don't know if either of you guys picked up on it, but it was like a very tongue-in-cheek joke when I said, I'm not kidding. I actually, can I just say for a second, not to brag, I actually thought that this was one of my tightest shows of the year in terms of just ripping the Steelers. I hate that not as many people watch the Lost episodes because I had so much fun just absolutely ripping them on this one. I was so mean.
It was a good one.
Yeah.
There you go.
No.
Awesome. Man, you guys do such a great job on the shows, man. I'm here to tell you, there's no way on this planet that anybody else is doing the same kind of stuff that you guys are doing, man. I don't care, man. It's some quality stuff, man. That's the whole reason why that it's a 5-star matchup, because you guys are in it and you guys are taking care of business and doing things here, man. So
that.
I mean, I love everything that you guys are doing. I mean, it's how can you not? And I'll tell you what, all you have to do is hop on over to Patreon, right? And do the patreon.com/5SMU, $4 a month.
I mean,
come on, guys, it's $48 a year.
I mean, come on. Patreon.com/5SMU. It's as easy as firing Matt Canada in week 11. This guy stinks. He's the worst offensive coordinator I've ever seen. I can't
Worse than Fichtner?
Yes. Randy Fichtner, in 2018, the Steelers led the league in red zone touchdown percentage. They led the league. All right. Matt Canada has never... Matt Canada had one game. He had one game with 300 yards passing in 3 seasons. Come on, dog. Oh, yeah. Okay? God, the bar has just gotten so low. And I think, I think the big thing here is just how this is going to impact Kenny Pickett. I know everything. I know I hate that it always sounds like this conversation always comes back to Pickett, but in reality, that's what it comes back to, right? Like, you have to hope that this move was made in his interest. And I think that that's why Art Rooney did this. And I think that, hopefully it's a positive for him, because clearly he is just, he's struggling. We can see it. No, everybody knows he's missing throws. He had another one this week that throw a lot of people have looked at where Deontay was coming across the middle wide open, would have been a touchdown. Like, you just got to make some of these throws. But I also can't blame a guy who's just like, his whole experience in the NFL now is in a system that is just not putting him in a good place to succeed. So I don't know, because still the only success we've ever seen him or Ben have in this offense is in the 2-minute drill.
Kind of feels a little bit like Jared Goff before McVay got there. No?
Yeah, except for Jared.
That's a good way to put it.
Except for Jared Goff was still like, I mean, Pickett, we do, even in the most positive mindset, have to acknowledge that Kenny Pickett literally has the worst touchdown percentage in NFL history. I mean, that's a fact. He, like, whatever you want to say about Canada, unless he's literally the worst offensive coordinator in the history of the NFL, Pickett needs some blame for that, right? I mean, I don't know that he's thrown a touchdown on 1.9% of his passes in, almost 2 seasons now. That's
unacceptable is what that is.
No, that's just really, really, really poor. This kid from the Giants is a third stringer, lives with his parents, who threw 3 touchdowns this week. Like, Will Levis came in and threw 4 his first week. I know he's struggling now, but like, Pickett, I can't, even as a supporter, I can't ignore that now that this season has become a long sample size, it is somewhat alarming. But I think, being that he's the inexperienced one here, he deserves the benefit of the doubt more than Canada ever did.
Well, let's put this a little bit into context, because Canada, in the previous administration's offensive scheming, Kenny Pickett was not put in the best position for success, as we've all mentioned many times. When you're throwing the outside of the numbers passes, the over-the-shoulder passes, and that type of thing on a regular basis as part of what you're schemed out to do, those are the most lowest percentage completion passes, period. Even Hall of Fame quarterbacks have a hard time making them throws. So why is he constantly being forced to make those kinds of throws? And then everybody's complaining, well, Kenny Pickett missed this wide open. I mean, even Ben Roethlisberger on his show is like, oh, man, he should have probably made that. Okay, but all he's done throughout the entire time he's been with the previous administration is that's the throws that are all, that armband that he looks at, those first 15 or 20 scripted plays are all those kinds of plays, passes out to those outside the numbers. We have an offense that is built for guys to take the top off and is built for guys to take and clear out the middle and run up the gut. That is how this offense is built, quote unquote, because of the tight ends that we have, the wide receivers that we have, and the offensive line that we have, and the quarterback that we have. Quarterback is better running out. Quarterback is better doing RPOs. Quarterback is better being more make decisions on his feet instead of having things scripted out all the way, all the time. Being able to do some ad lib, being able to do some of those kinds of things, take what the defense is giving you instead of trying to force it all the time. You can't, Gage, you said it perfectly. You can't keep doing run up the middle for -2, and then when it's 3rd and 20, you run it again and expecting it's going to work.
It's true. Because a lot of times, like, what we're doing is just kind of the same thing, regardless. I mean, I know I mentioned the definition of insanity already a couple of times, but I mean, those last 2 games against the Titans and whatever the other one was, I can't even remember anymore.
Packers.
And the Packers, where like you saw again loosely resembling 4 quarters of real play. I don't know. Maybe I looked too much into it, but scoring 17 points in the first 3 drives was, the 2000 Rams compared to what we were looking at previously. And I don't know, man. I'm ready for a change on all fronts, if you will. But I would like to see something else. I don't know what else it is, but anything else. I would take Todd Haley back in a heartbeat right now.
I know. I saw you posted that in the chat when we were in the presser for Mike Tomlin. 5-star posted that in the chat. Todd Haley 2024. I'm like, really?
Listen, I mean, I hear your point on those games resembling a real offense, but then you go and you look and you see that against the Jaguars, against the Titans, and against the Packers and the Browns, those 4 games, that's a quarter of the season, the Steelers had 191 passing yards, 160 passing yards, 119 passing yards, and 77 passing yards. I don't know, that math off the top of my head is probably like 130 average, something like that, right?
Wait, read them off again.
190, 160, 120, and 77. It's got to be like 130 or so, right? Average.
Oh yeah, you're less than that. I think it's like like 127
that
maybe.
70s, the 77 is gonna kill you.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's just, you could say, and 0 passing touchdowns, if I remember correctly. I don't think he's thrown one since the Rams game, maybe, if I remember. Somebody correct me, unless he. Yeah, I don't know. I can't remember. He throws passing touchdowns so few and far between that I can't even remember.
The last one.
Yeah, I can't. I mean, it's wild. Yeah, no, I think.
There's people that are saying things too about, and we've seen this throughout the whole rest of the thing. Everybody's like, oh, well, Trubisky or Rudolph or whatever, and blah, blah, blah. And I'm just going to put this to bed right here and now. Okay? I don't care what anybody says. Kenny Pickett is still the best quarterback in the room.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So it doesn't matter. Anybody wants to say, oh, let's put in Trubisky or hey, let's put in Rudolph. Why? Do you
Yeah.
want to even decrease your chances? Even look, in spite of what anybody ever thinks, Kenny Pickett is still the best quarterback in the room. I know that's not saying much. Okay, it really isn't, and we really have to kind of take this judgment of Kenny Pickett, I think, a little bit with. I think we have to treat it a little bit with some kid gloves because of the offensive coordinator and how things progress
Kid
throughout.
gloves.
Did you like
Kenny
that?
Pickett. Kid gloves.
You
Yeah.
did. Anyway, so every once in a while I come with a good
No,
one.
I hear you. I hear you. But I will say I am getting to the point with Tomlin
Yes.
week by week where I'm like, this dude, he will throw anybody under the bus. He not under the bus, but he is not. Oh, like he said today, he's overly protective, and I try to absorb all the criticism. And to his credit, for like his coaching staff, generally, he usually does. He usually will say, "I'm a part of that decision," and blah blah blah. I'll give him credit there. But for players, he's had no trouble in the past, calling out their poor play and stuff like that. And Pickett, it's like he will not say anything negative about him, anything. And I get that young quarterback, I know Tomlin really admires his like above the shoulders. He's always in the building. He's always trying. He's always working. So I get all that, and I get why you wouldn't want to like hurt his confidence. But then it's like one of two things though, where it's like, okay, well, were you aware that he was being handcuffed by a bad offensive coordinator? So you wanted to subvert the blame from him. I get that, but then like, why did you keep him with a terrible offensive coordinator? Okay.
So you have to keep absorbing and subverting and whatever.
Exactly. Or he didn't think Matt Canada was the problem, and in which case that would kind of go back on the whole like Art Rooney Jr. was the one who decided to do this. Like, I don't know. I just think it's weird, and I guess he just wants to protect Pickett and keep him shielded as much as he can. But I think it's getting to a point though where he's gonna have no credibility if he isn't gonna be willing to put anything on Pickett, because regardless of the offense and the scheme and whatever you want to dive into, it's just objectively true that Pickett has not been good enough. I mean, that's just a reality.
In the chat, Rudolph is way more talented than kids' gloves, but
he's not the darling.
He's not the darling.
Listen, Rudolph has the best arm in the room. I have no problem saying that. He always did. Mason Rudolph's had the best arm in the Steelers quarterback room since the second he got drafted. There's no doubt about that. I said that even when Ben was still here. Even before the injury, Rudolph had a stronger arm than Ben at that point in his career. Guy could throw it. There's not, it's just the reality is once you drafted Pickett, he's the only way forward, because either you're going to build your team around him and you're going to be successful and you're going to have a chance every year because your quarterback developed and he's a good player, or you're going to have to throw him in the garbage can and draft a new one and start over again, or bring in Derek Carr or Ryan Tannehill or whatever the hell you want to do. But the reality is, like, you have to see what you have in Pickett. He's, there's no point in benching him. I will say, though,
ride that out. I will say
2 points. I will say, one, if they hadn't fired Canada, I did think that there was actually a legitimately fair case to go to Trubisky this week, because to me, I thought this was bottoming out on Sunday for Pickett. He just looked bad, and to me, it felt like one of those situations where it's like maybe you just need to watch for a minute, because he feels like he's folding in on himself a little bit. But I think this is now this will probably give him a little bit of a boost, and I'm hopeful that they'll get him going early and all that kind of stuff. So I didn't think that was really unfair. But one thing I want to ask both of y'all, all the blame, all the credit, Canada, this, that, other thing. What was the problem this week between Pickett and Deontay Johnson? Is that the offensive coordinator's fault? Like, that the quarterback and the wide receiver one don't know what the other one's doing? That's what I want to know. Whose fault is that? And how do we assess blame for that?
They have the same kind of like anti-chemistry Kenny and Deontay do that Duck and Juju did. If anybody can remember when those two were playing with each other, they just
Yeah.
never. I'm convinced statistically that Duck has never completed a pass to Juju because that just they were always like a foot or two away. Like
I know
from where they came.
verifiably that's incorrect because Juju fumbled that one at the end of the Ravens game when Duck first came in and they lost. Remember that? So
Right. Yeah.
I
at
don't
least
remember
one.
that.
Yeah.
Okay, so we got the one pass that Duck completed to Juju. Oh yeah, I guess you're right.
Remember
yeah.
that was the fumble. That was the game changing play. They were driving to win, and
Yeah.
Thanks,
Fumble,
Juju. No, I'm kidding.
Juju. Hey,
Yeah.
I love Juju. I'm as big a Juju guy as
too.
anybody, but he had a couple of killer fumbles. He
Yeah.
had 2 or 3 just killer. That one against the Saints was brutal. Oh,
And that was for like the first seed or whatever for that year, so that was tough.
It was. Yeah, it was. So, all right. Man.
yeah. I don't know that Deontay thing though. I mean, whose fault is that? I know none of us are in the room, but I'd love to hear this, like people in the chat. But like, I mean, to me, if you're the quarterback one and you're wide receiver one, that's not the offensive coordinator's fault. Even if you want to put it on coaching, isn't that the quarterback's coach and the wide receivers coach? Like, who is the one saying this is an option route and this is what
Let me
you
ask
do?
you a question. Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
No,
Go ahead.
I
I'm
just
sorry.
who if Pickett's having so much trouble reading zone, reading man, whatever it is, that's the book on him. Everybody says he can play against man defense, but he can't play against zone defense. I have to imagine at his level, he's still able to identify which one is which, right? I mean, any of us who's played Madden can identify that. So why? I mean, because to me, I thought that was the difference in this game. Since Deontay came back, I thought him and Pickett were cooking, and I thought Deontay had been clearly the best part of the passing game and helped to unlock it a little bit. And then this week, they were just not on the same page. And like, what was Deontay mad about? How? And if he was mad, he couldn't have been. He must have been mad at the quarterback for not knowing where he was going to be, right? He can't be on the field and be mad at Matt Canada because him and Pickett didn't know where the other one was going to be, right? I don't know. How can it just, I don't know.
Yeah, Deontay's
no.
a bit.
Go ahead.
Deontay's a bit of a hothead. I mean, we all know that, and I mean he's in a good way, right? Because he's a guy who wants to win, But it's kind of undeniable that ever since Kenny got under center, I mean, Mitch and Deontay never had good chemistry, but I mean, I feel like if anything, it's only gotten worse since Kenny's been in the lineup. I do not think we should have gone back to Mitch or anything, but I know that for a fact that they'll never put Mason back in, because if Mason were to light it up, they would look like assholes, and so they'll just never put themselves in that situation. So that's another thing. But Kenny, like, I don't know, man. Kenny and Deontay, again, these last couple weeks that we keep going back to, it feels like they were starting to build a little bit of chemistry. They at least weren't like missing each other by 3 to 5 yards like they have been, in this game. But it just, again, this entire game felt like a one big regression.
When you look at where they've gone and what they've done, and you look at how the games have evolved for this season, Dante missed some time there, a significant amount of time. Like it was what, five or six games he missed?
I think it was just the minimum 4 that he missed, but yeah.
Well, he missed 4 games, right? This is only his 3rd game back now, 4th game back, something like that.
He came back at the bye, so whatever that was. He's played 1, 2, 3. He's actually played 5 games already, but yeah.
All right, okay. So I think this goes back to not just, hey, but I think this goes back to a Matt Canada thing where the scheme, where the routes, where the plays are designed and developed. But I also think this, and I want to ask you guys this question to interject in this. If you were a quarterback in the National Football League, would you or would you not be buddy-buddy with your wide receiver?
Yeah.
Wouldn't you be like hanging and taking them out to dinner once a week? Wouldn't you be doing the same thing with your offensive line? I mean, these are the kind of people you work with every day. Don't you think you'd be kind of doing that kind of stuff? Do you think Kenny Pickett's doing that? Maybe.
He does with the line. I do know that for sure. I don't know
Okay,
about the
right.
receivers, but the
So,
line, yes.
and we do know that we've seen Kenny Pickett take Dante Johnson and Juju Smith-Schuster and do the thing over the summer,
Yeah, they did do
right?
that this year. Yep.
And they did that this year too with George Pickens and everything else like that, and blah 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 blah. When you run into a string of not being able to put it together, when you run into the fact that this offense is so anemic, okay, and there's so very little good, right? Any little thing good coming out of it is going to be, hey, let's ride that, which is why we got the last two games where it looked like we had a semblance of offense, because we were basically riding the fact that Broderick Jones was the best offensive lineman out there, and it didn't matter who we were facing. He was just going to take him out, and all you had to do was, hey, Najee, run behind that guy.
Yeah.
Hey, Jalen Warren, run behind that guy. And we saw it even in the Cleveland game when he broke that 74-yard run, right? What happened? Dude, he ran behind Broderick Jones, who opened up a hole that a Mack truck could drive through.
Yeah.
Okay? So that's what I mean by this whole thing. There's so many different cogs and so many different ingredients in this stew that you would think that Kenny Pickett and Dante Johnson would be more on the same page, but they haven't been since this whole offense has started. Nobody has been on the same page since this offense has started, right? This is why
I'd argue that Kenny and George have been, but that's about it.
To some extent, yeah, right. To some extent, right. There's been a couple of
They've been on
times...
such the same page that he's thrown multiple tirades and gotten annoyed multiple times, including when Deontay Johnson scored a game-winning touchdown and he stormed off the field like a pouty little baby because he wasn't the one who caught it. And that was the week after he deleted a bunch of Steelers stuff from his social media and then said to the media, "Oh, I was just cleaning stuff up." Like, what does that even mean? Let me tell you something. I'm a social media expert. This is what I do for a job. No one ever in the history of the world has gone in their Instagram feed and said, "Oh, I'm just going to like tidy things up," and archived a bunch of specific posts and then brought them back 6 hours later because they were cleaning things up. What were you doing? You're going to look to see what your grid looked like, to see how much was what Georgia Bulldogs and how much was Pittsburgh Steelers. Yeah, I hear that. I think that there is. I think that that wide receivers can be a little bit short-sighted sometimes, and I think that I don't know that any of them believe in Kenny Pickett, but I don't know that they have enough of a reason after the first 10 games of this season to believe in him. We've seen all of us on social media. Week after week, we look at the all 22 where people are like, "Oh, Pickett really missed this one," or "Pickett really missed that one," or if he puts a better
game,
yeah, exactly. And then all of a sudden, if he hits those, then what's the difference between him throwing for 180 or 220 or it's hard. It's really hard to know. Like you say, there's so many cogs in this machine. It's hard to know. And all I know is, like, if I look at what I always held up as the worst Steelers, the worst modern year the Steelers had on offense, for me, was the Duck and Mason Rudolph year, because we had 20 years of Ben, and then we all of a sudden go to Rudolph and Duck. Between them, right? Mason Rudolph, Duck Hodges, and Ben Roethlisberger. I'm doing quick math in my head. Oh no, I have it right here. Team total: they threw for 3,200 yards and 18 touchdowns that year. There's no way in hell Pickett is getting to 3,200 yards and 18 touchdowns this year. That's just not happening. That's just not happening. And this is the second year.
Even if he does like 300 yards for the next 3 games or whatever,
I mean, and this is the second year of a guy who is, the team is supposedly, geared to be built around him. He was drafted in the first round as a quarterback. Like, I don't know. I can see the players' frustrations. But I still, to me, none of this answers whose fault this is. It Deontay Johnson or Kenny Pickett? Who's in the wrong? And why are they not on the same page?
Mike Tomlin. That's who's at fault. Mike Tomlin, right? It comes from the top down. He's absorbing, so it's his fault.
Oh, yeah.
It's your fault that you this coordinator here. It's your fault that or not your fault, but you're the one that made the decision to bring this coordinator in. You're the one that made this decision to do this, right? You're the man. You're the leader. You're the one that's making these decisions, right? Well, Mike, I'm here to tell you, man, we've far too many times where your decision-making skills lack. Okay, you don't know clock manage. You don't know how to call the right play at the right time. You don't know when to go for it or when to not to go for it on fourth down at the hard line. What are you doing? How many times do we say that? How many times do you do that in your show, 5-Star? How many times do we question what he's doing? And now we're going to sit here and try to believe that he's the one at the top and he's the one making the decisions and this, that, and everything else. Prove it. Prove it. Show me.
Fair enough. Yeah.
I don't know. I'm not. We're talking about Mike T still, right?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's going everywhere. I mean,
Yeah, it's just I don't know, man. Like whatever they say that I don't know. He's the worst situational coach in football outside of like Josh McDaniels, but he's fired now, or but dude, I mean, how often do we like does Steve have to say in his shows like, to your point, Steel Fire? But like, how often is he going, hey, why are we punting it like on the opponent's 39-yard line on 4th and 1 when we're down like 28 points?
yeah, you know what though? I'll give Tomlin credit this week. The one point
Why?
the one point in the Browns game. No, I think this is fair. I try to be objective. You guys know. I try to, there are weeks when I'm down on Mike, and then there's weeks where, to me, I thought that they managed the game fine. The offense never came through ever. They had 6 out of 7 drives. If you want to blame Mike Tomlin for the defense, which everybody does, they say he calls the defense, it's really his machine. On 6 out of 7 drives after the Jaylen Warren touchdown, the Browns did nothing. They did nothing. They stopped them repeatedly. And in that period of time, 6 out of 7 drives, the Steelers offense ran 20 plays to get 25 yards. I mean, at some point, you got to just be able to, score a touchdown, like he said. And I didn't think that Mike Tomlin misplayed anything in this game. The only thing that I raised in the show was possibly going for that 4th and 5 or 4th and 4 when they kicked the game-tying field goal. But to his credit, every other week this season, eventually they figured out how to get a field goal when it mattered. And this week they had 2 chances right at the end, and they just didn't do it. They didn't do anything. The one particularly where they got the 1st and 10 at the Browns 40 and didn't even get Boz a chance at 55 or so. It was just pathetic. I mean, once you get to the 40, you have a kicker like Boswell, you have the run game working like it's been. I'm sorry, you can't lose 12 yards on 2 straight plays. And I would say that the last 6 plays of this game are ultimately what will have been the nails in the coffin for Matt Canada's career in the NFL. I mean, really, they had a 1st and 10 at the 40. You need 5, 6, 7 yards for Boswell to have a legit opportunity. They lose 12. They go completely backwards and have to punt it back. Defense gets another stop. They take over at like their own 40, and they do nothing. 3 straight passes, incomplete, don't even take a second off the clock. Just pathetic. And I think ultimately that's really what did him in. I just, but I didn't think Mike mismanaged anything this week. Did you? I don't know. What was your problem?
The defense fucking drove me crazy, to be honest, because I think it was like, yes, I know you look at the final score. Oh, it was only 13 points versus 10 points. Yes, I get that. But it wasn't like they couldn't move the ball. It just didn't show up on the scoreboard. God, DTR is like, okay, he's fine. He's good, right? I'm not going to shit talk DTR. I mean, he's a fast runner and all that stuff, and he can throw at least a decent check down game. But he's a backup. And once again, our defense, especially through the air, could do fucking nothing to stop him.
I hear you.
I'm just tired of it. Listen, our defense has been getting carved up by bad quarterbacks since Timothy Richard Tebow, and nothing has changed.
And the last 8 weeks of this season, they've given up the least amount of points in the league. So I can't be mad about the defense. They lost Cole Holcomb. They lost.
Are they still like 32nd in the league in like
scoring
pretty much every
in yards. In yards, they're bottom. They're like very low, like 25 or worse in almost every yard statistic. But in scoring, they're giving up 15 points a game. Look at this. You're gonna tell me with the players that they've been missing, Okay, Cam Hayward most of the season, Minkah Fitzpatrick the last month. This is what the Steelers have done since the Texans game. They gave up 10 points, 17 points, 20 points, 16 points, 19 points, 13 points. In 2023, you should win all of those games. All of those games. If you drafted a quarterback in the first round to be the future, and you're telling me 20 points is a non-starter to win a game, then, you got bigger problems. For me, I can't be mad about the defense. Even
Who
this
are we
week.
playing, though? Every time that we seem to go up against a good offense, or especially a playoff team, we get fucking destroyed on defense.
Listen, they're doing good it's 2023. Other teams have offenses. They got rocked by the Niners and they got rocked by the Texans, and otherwise their other two losses, they gave up 20 points and 13 points. I don't know, man. You're not giving yourself a chance if you're losing a game in 2023 with your starting quarterback and you gave up 13 points. I can't put anything on the defense. They had this guy, Michael Walker, playing. I never even heard of him 5 minutes ago. He was on the practice squad. Landon Roberts almost needed to get an asthma inhaler because he played 957 snaps. He's supposed to be the guy that's only playing on the rundowns. They lost the green dot guy. They lost another green dot guy. They lost the most important coverage player in Minkah Fitzpatrick. They got a rookie playing at cornerback. I mean, come on. They gave up 13 points, all right?
But how much better was our defense playing when we had those guys? Not that much.
And truthfully, not only did they give up 13 points, they really gave up 10 because they gave up a field goal at the end, but that was after the Steelers had 15 chances to win the game. I mean, at some point...
That's fair.
At some point, you got to go out and, sorry, you guys keep hearing, I'm clicking around ESPN. You guys probably aren't hearing it on the show, but the end user is, because ESPN always has some stupid autoplay video. Listen, this is how the drives went, okay, in the second half. Steelers touchdown, Browns punt, Steelers punt, Browns punt, Steelers punt, Browns interception, Steelers punt, Browns punt, Steelers field goal, Browns punt, Steelers punt, Browns punt, Steelers punt, Browns field goal, end of the game. I mean, at some point, you got to have a little bit of juice on offense. Yeah. You got to do something, You're not beating anybody. I don't care. Yeah, Thompson Robinson is a backup and whatever. But Tomlin knew. He said it in his press conference today. He knew that they had no chance that they were going to play like that, and it limited what they were going to be able to do. They weren't going to be able to score a lot of points. They might move it a little bit. But they're professionals too, and Stefanski's a good offensive guy, blah, blah, blah. They're going to move it. But at the end of the day, I can't complain about the defense, the guys they were down and what they gave up. The offense needs to win that game 100 times out of 100. I'll tell you this. I think Mitchell Trubisky, if he came in when Pickett looked like he got hurt, I think he would have found a way to win that game. I think Ben Roethlisberger, if he rolled out of bed on Sunday morning, would have found a way to win that game. I think Mason Rudolph wins that game. I can't put that on Pickett because, again, his entire NFL experience is with Matt Canada as his offensive coordinator. But I'm not making excuses for him either. He was terrible too. It's the bottom line.
Someone in the chat quickly mentioned that oh, I'm sorry, Steele. I'll get to you in just 1 second. Someone in the chat that mentioned yeah, well, Mitch Trubisky has like a 5 touchdown game. Yeah, and he also has like 1,000,003 interception games, which is how I think we would have added one more to the list had we taken Kenny Pickett out and replaced him with Mitch in that game. We would have lost, I think 27-10.
Trubisky stinks. Or something. Trubisky stinks, but I do think that like over an average period of time, if you're talking about 7 or 8 possessions, I think
it averages out.
I think a veteran would have eventually put up a touchdown in that game. I think Trubisky. I think that one drive that they kicked the field goal, I think Trubisky probably finishes that drive. I'm being honest. I hate Trubisky. I've been shit talking to him since the second he walked in the door. Don't get me wrong. But I think he's more experienced. It's not a knock on Pickett. He's played like 65 games in the NFL or something. Like it's just, that's not complimenting. That's not complimenting him. But I think the reality is, and that's why he got fired. That's why we fired Canada, because he's not giving the quarterback a chance.
So you asked about what I felt would be some of the things that Mike Tomlin did as far as mismanagement is concerned. How about the fact that we made it to halftime without barely any of our timeouts? We had to use our first two timeouts in the very beginning part of the game. The fact that we had an opportunity, that this game was basically an opportunity for them to outcoach a rookie quarterback, to outcoach a very young head coach in the Browns. You know what I'm saying? Mike Tomlin historically has a good record against rookie quarterbacks historically. Do you know what I mean? The fact that you couldn't put together a game plan to beat this fracking team, that to me is big problems. The fact that you can't manage the clock look, how many times have we said this, Steve, in any one of our shows where we've done where, man, what is he doing on that fourth down? What is he doing? The fact that, look, it's like Kenny Pickett misses 4 or 5 throws a game. Mike Tomlin makes these 4 or 5, Doomkoff decisions a game.
Yeah.
Okay, and after a while, it starts to get old. Okay, we're at that point now. This is where I'm at right now with Mike Tomlin. He is, without a doubt, a Hall of Fame coach. Without a doubt, as far as I'm concerned, look, if you put Bill Cowher into the Hall of Fame, Mike Tomlin has got very similar numbers to Bill Cowher. Okay, winning percentage, Super Bowls, blah, 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 blah. Mike Tomlin is a Hall of Fame coach, right? Can we start his 5-year waiting period now?
Hey,
That's all I'm asking you, man. Okay, right? You have to wait 5 years before you can get into the Hall of Fame, right? Can we start on his 5 years now?
Listen, Bill Cowher and Mike Tomlin may have a similar winning percentage. That's technically true, but the difference between Mike and Bill is that Bill Cowher's playoff losses were the AFC Championship game in like a razor close game where his quarterback sucked or something. Mike Tomlin's losses in the playoffs are against Timothy Tebow.
I'm with you. No, I agree with you 100%. No, I agree with you 100%. But when you basically break it down, the number of wins compared to the number of losses and the same number of ties, or no, I think actually Tomlin has one more tie than Cowher does, right? But they've both been to the Super Bowl a couple times. They both have one Super Bowl win with the team. Do you know what I'm saying? So I mean, it's that's what I mean by having similar numbers.
They're both very similar. I would say that I would have to say though that the floor was I think it's fair to say that the floor and the ceiling were both higher with Cowher. I think that's
Agreed.
fair.
Yeah.
I think
Agreed.
No, I'm sorry. The ceiling was higher with Cowher, but the floor was lower.
Agreed.
That's fair because he has some losing seasons. Tomlin's never done that. We get, even if you want to point to that as a joke, blah, 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 it's still, it is a feat. I'm not going to say it's not a feat. I mean, if he coaches 20 years and he never has a losing season, I mean, that is pretty amazing in this league, to be honest. But
he's at 17 now, you know what I'm saying?
But, okay, so he went to the AFC Championship in 08, 10, and 16. Right, if I'm remembering correctly, 15. One of those years, 16, 17, whatever. Yeah, 16
to 17.
Yeah. So 3 times in his tenure, Cowher went to the AFC Championship game in 1994, 1995, 1997, 2001, 2004, 2005. That's 6 times. That's twice as many. I mean, that's substantial to me. I always used to, as a Steelers fan growing up. Yeah, exactly. I mean, as a Steelers fan growing up, that was really my bar. Like, I was just getting it in my head with talking with my uncles when I'm a kid and blah, blah, blah. To me, it became the bar, okay? Like, you get to AFC, I know everybody says, oh, Super Bowls are the bar. Like, shut up. You're not going to win the Super Bowl every year. The Patriots didn't even win the Super Bowl every year. Like, the bar for me is like, do we have a shot? And to me, Cowher did it so frequently that it was like, oh, the Steelers are in the AFC Championship game, you win this one, they go to the Super Bowl. But, Tomlin, it's become so distant. I mean, he's been to the AFC Championship game 1 time since 2010. And he
got destroyed.
And he got killed, yeah. I don't know. I mean, it's tough. I don't like to, separate out him and Cowher because I think that they are very similar in terms of how I how I look at the analysis of their careers.
Right, I'm with you guys. And the only thing I was comparing Mike Tomlin to was Bill Cowher's wins, losses, ties.
Sure, they're very
And-
similar. Yeah.
Right, because really that's all they. I mean, that's all they look at as far as yes, Bill Cowher had a much different way of doing things than Tomlin ever did, and he did things much differently. But what I was basically looking at is that similarly, their numbers are the same. Their winning percentage is the same. The number of wins, the number of losses and ties, and everything else like that are virtually the same. And as far as number of Super Bowls they have, it actually has one more than Bill Cowher because he actually has a Super Bowl trophy with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers as a coach. Okay, so you have to throw that into the mix too with Mike Tomlin, where in his career as a coach he has 2 Super Bowls. Okay, so one of them as a defensive coordinator and one of them as head coach. But all I was saying was that their numbers are similar. That's the
you're
only
absolutely
thing.
right. You're absolutely
Yeah,
right.
that's the only thing. I just want his 5 years to start now.
Here's something.
I agree.
Here's something I've been thinking about today. Okay. Because I was thinking about, I like I said, I can't get this Najee thing out of my head. Like the quotes he had after the game, the one that I posted, to like lead off the show, where, the guy's like, does it feel like it knows, like people know what's coming? And I mean, I didn't edit that. I zoomed in, but I didn't edit the timing or anything like that. And it's like a 10-second pause. I mean, literally, he just
uncomfortable 10-second pause.
You could tell he just was thinking of like, how do I respond to that? Like he literally, and the cool thing about that I thought you could even hear the PR lady was like, guys, we have to go to Pittsburgh. We have to go back to Pittsburgh. Cause they were trying, clearly she heard that Najee was going off and she came over and tried to like, kind of, let's be a little professional here.
Let's move along.
But to his credit, man, I think those comments, I don't think they fell on deaf ears. I think they mattered. I think him and I think Deontay blowing up on the sideline, those are 2 veteran leaders of this team. And I think ownership saw this, and I think they said, we might have a full-ass mutiny on our hands here on the offensive side if we don't do something. I don't think these guys believe in Matt Canada, and I think it's hindering our young quarterback. He's not progressing anymore. And I think it pushed him. I think it pushed him over the edge. If you want to, the Tomlin thing, if you want to get interesting about it, he did not get an extension this season, which has typically been the time he's gotten an extension. So he only has 1 year left on his contract next year. If I were to ask you guys gut chance, if you give me a percentage, Gage, what is the percentage chance Mike Tomlin is not the Steelers head coach in 2025?
I don't want to say 10%. We'll say 25% maybe. But even that seems a little bit presumptuous. I mean, the Steelers are kind of one of those organizations that does the same thing and gets moderate results. I don't expect them to make wholesale change. I do think that Art Rooney is getting impatient. No, maybe not impatient, because I mean, the rest of us are too. But I don't know, man. I'd like to see change. I've been saying this since the Brownies wildcard loss, but it'll be interesting to see what the future holds. Hopefully,
All right, Steele, how about you?
I can't even disagree with that at all. But
so you're both saying only 25% chance there's a new.
No. I really think there's going to be. I think there's going to be the winds of change are going to come. I think the Matt Canada thing was just the tip of the iceberg. Because if you remember 2 years ago, before Tomlin signed his extension, and there was questions then, right? And ownership came out and said, these things need to improve. We need to do this. We need to do that. We need to do this. Those things that ownership came out and asked for to improve haven't improved, okay, in those 2 years, right? And Mike Tomlin, I mean...
The running game debatably has gotten better. Both the second half of last year and the last month, the running game has been better than it was from like 18 to 21, for sure.
Above average, I'd say.
Yeah, I'll give him credit there.
Okay. as much credit as you want to give him, okay, that's all fine and great. But am I seeing a 100-yard rusher every week?
No.
No. So
No.
then doesn't matter how much credit you want to give me.
Sure.
If I don't see a 100-yard rusher every week, that's not
it's
getting
not
me anywhere.
dominant. It's not dominant for sure.
I don't need it to be dominant. I need a 100-yard rusher every week.
Yeah.
That's pretty
Okay.
dominant, bro.
But no, look, historically, if Pittsburgh throws the ball 25 times or less and has a 100-yard rusher, they win 78% of the time. So if you're going to feature Jaylen Warren and Najee Harris, then you better pony up and do it. That's
Hey.
all I'm trying to say. Okay? If you're not, then you better have a quarterback that's chucking it 300 yards a game.
Well, listen, yeah, you're
won't
absolutely
have any of that.
No, you're absolutely right. But I'll just, just to give some credit. The Steelers back in 18-19 were, near the very bottom of the league in rush offense, 30th, 31st, even 32nd one year, if I recall. And I got to give them credit. I mean, this year they're 16th in the league in rush offense, which, considering how bad their offense has been, 16th in the league is, I mean, that's, you have a couple more good games. They might finish 10th in the league in rush offense this year. I know it's not. I'm just saying. Look, I'm just saying if you wanna talk about the directives, the Art Rooney directives, all that. That I'm just saying it's like that is one thing that has gotten better in recent times, but it's not. I agree, it's not anything
enough.
amazing. And
Right.
I see a lot of people in the chat, especially one of my longtime listeners. Is it sustainable? Who seems to really not be in on the Tomlin criticism. And I hear that, and I've gone back and forth and bounced around with my feelings on Tomlin a lot, especially since I've been doing this show. However, I just do think at some point, when year after year I'm doing this and I'm talking to you guys, and we're just saying, man, like the offense just really stinks, and is it Canada's fault? Is it Pickett's fault? Is it Duck Hodges' fault? Is it Ben Roethlisberger's fault? Is it Kent Graham's fault? Is it Dennis Dixon's fault? Is it, James? I mean, I remember when really in his last year here, people were telling me straight up that James Conner was the problem with the Steelers' run game. What has James Conner done since he's been on the Cardinals? He's been a phenomenal running back and one of the best in the league, and he scores 10 million touchdowns every season. What he scored last year? What did he get, 19 touchdowns or something like that?
Yeah.
I mean, I just think it's, at some point, I just think you have to take a step back and assess the totality of the picture. And I think that, something we've all talked about at different points is the Andy Reid moment with Philadelphia, where it's this is a guy that we know is a good coach. We respect him. We're thankful for what he did. But I just wonder if at a certain point, doing all of this stuff the same way, the same time forever, I just think sometimes you just kind of have to maybe break it up and change it a little bit. And if you want to say that the problem is that they don't have talent on offense, you know whose fault that is? Mike Tomlin's. He's the one who puts it together. Don't tell. Yeah, they have a GM that
You keep making that argument, man.
Omar Khan is a cap guy. He's here to fit people under the cap, not to, but they're not, not one single person in the Steelers organization is taking a football opinion from Omar Khan over Mike Tomlin. Not one single damn person. He's the one who evaluates these people. He's the one who drafted Artie Burns. He's the one who drafted Kenny Pickett. He's the one who drafted Devin Bush. He's the one who drafted Mason Rudolph, whatever, so I don't know. At some point, if you want to say the offensive coordinator is not good and the draft isn't good and the quarterback stinks and the line isn't good and the defense isn't as good as it used to be, he's the one who put it all together. And then I also hear people saying, well, they're rebuilding and they're still contending. How long are they going to rebuild? Because in my opinion, they've been rebuilding since AB left.
AB left.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, like, at what point is the rebuild supposed to be rebuilt? I just think at some point you got to get the house finished and back up on the market. Okay, like
No, we're complacent.
you can't just keep changing out the tile. We're gonna bring in Mark Barron to play middle linebacker after Ryan Shazier got hurt. We're gonna bring in this guy, and then we're gonna bring in this guy, and then we're gonna sign a guy with a mullet, and then we're gonna sign Quan Alexander. Then they're both gonna get hurt in back-to-back weeks, and then we're gonna do this, and then we're gonna do that, and then blah 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 blah. Like, ultimately, everything comes back down on him, and I just, I don't know.
Steve, you keep making my argument for me, bro. I don't have to say a word, man. Look, I'm just trying to be honest. A thing, but it's the truth, though. That's what I'm trying to say here. That's why I'm saying what I'm saying. It's all of these things that are adding up. It's all of these things. Look, I'm not trying to deny that Mike Tomlin is not a good coach. I'm not denying that at all. I'm not denying the fact that what he's done with this team over his span of time is nothing but, as far as I'm concerned, he's a Hall of Fame coach. Okay, but I just want his time to start now. I don't want this message. I don't want this to be the same message in 2025. I don't even want it to be in 2024. Okay, I really don't. I'm tired of the same message. I'm tired of not getting where they need to be going. I'm tired of constantly losing in the latter part of the year, where that's when you need to be winning so you can make the playoffs. I'm tired of sitting at home watching all these other teams like the Bills, like pick somebody, make it into the playoffs and have a shot. Like the fact that Cincinnati is coming out of our division. What are you doing? How come we're not winning division titles? Where's that? Right? How soon can we get that? Okay, you know how you get that? W's.
You know what I want to say. You know what I'll say to credit, because I don't want to sound like I'm just anti-Tomlin today, because I give him credit for absorbing the blow, for all this stuff, all that stuff. Arguing with my good friend, is it sustainable? My first Patreon supporter. He's a legend. I'm not hating. I'm not trying to get in a fight here. And I see a lot of people.
No.
I see a lot of people bringing up Kevin Colbert and his last few years of drafting. And I'm going to go back here to say what I've been saying now for a number of years, which is I think this entire franchise was set back by the fact that none of them, besides Ben Roethlisberger, wanted Ben Roethlisberger to come back in 2021. I don't believe that was what they planned on. I don't believe it's what they thought was going to happen. I think they all thought he was going to play one more season, then they were going to move on, and I think it had a ripple effect. I think it affected whether or not they could keep a Mike Hilton. I think it affected whether or not they could keep a Cam Sutton. I don't remember the timing. Yeah, I don't remember the timing of Hargrave and all that. I can't remember what year was what exactly, but I do think that it caused them to have a really, what looks in retrospect to be a really bad draft in 2021. And I just think it kind of threw them all for a loop. And I think Colbert probably stayed a year longer than he had planned, even just to keep that trio together of him, Tomlin, and Roethlisberger. And whether that's right or wrong, I don't know. But I think if Tomlin had his way about him, he probably would have said, okay, whatever, we'll move on, and gone into 2021, with either like a Mitchell Trubisky free agent type, or he would have traded up and drafted like Justin Fields or something like that. I think that's honestly what would have happened. Yeah.
Yeah, I would have much rather have, basically, with what, and you've even said it before on our show, even in other shows as well too, where this organization did not plan for life after Roethlisberger.
No. Not at all. Not at all.
100% they did not plan for life after Roethlisberger. And we saw what it was going to be like when we got Mason Rudolph and Duck, right? And that right there should have been the foreshadowing to let you know what's going on here, because they did not. Okay.
I didn't learn their lesson.
No, they didn't. And I'm going to go back and say this, and I've been saying this to you, Stevens, ever since he was drafted. I understand and I get it. I would have not have drafted Najee Harris I would have taken Jalen Hurts when we had the chance the year before.
Ooh.
Okay. Okay. They really did have a chance to get Hurts. He could have spent that year under Roethlisberger, right? Okay. And then now look at what Jalen Hurts is. He's MVP, right?
He wasn't MVP out
So
of the gate. He was actually a pretty mid rookie, if you'll recall.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. But he could have taken that
coaching.
year, learned under a Hall of Fame quarterback, right? And then now
If he wanted to.
we'd be having Jalen Hurts now as the quarterback. We wouldn't even be talking about Duck Hodges or any of this other garbage.
I hear your point exactly, but how much of that really has to do with what a cantankerous son of a bitch Ben was towards the end of his career? You really see him taken. You really see him. He got threatened. He got threatened the second a guy with actual physical ability came in, which was Mason Rudolph. He never cared at any other quarterback we drafted, but the one time we drafted a quarterback that had actual physical ability that people were like, "Oh, is that guy gonna be like the next guy?" He got so defensive so immediately and didn't even talk to him. They are notably not friends. And so like you're gonna tell me they would have drafted Jalen Hurts, this monster, out of Oklahoma, and he was gonna come in and Ben Roethlisberger was gonna help him? I don't know about that.
If they were smart, they could have. You know what I'm saying, right? But they had an opportunity to do so.
The only reason Ben was so cordial with Kenny was because he was obviously in when Ben was out. I think that he would have been just as cold and
exactly. I would say if all things were exactly equal and the difference was that Ben's 21 was in 22, but we drafted Pickett, they wouldn't have had a good relationship either. They wouldn't have. No, I would have. Yeah, they wouldn't have.
I agree.
Yeah,
I agree. But what I'm trying to say though is that there was that opportunity there. Okay, and I think they missed the opportunity to draft a quarterback when a quarterback was good at drafting, or when the quarterbacks were good to draft. And then the year that Pickett was drafted was not a quarterback-heavy year. Let's face it. Okay, we're seeing the fruits of
that's it.
We're seeing the fruits of that labor right there. Okay, right, and now the following year, where we got the, all these other guys that are out there now, the Strouds and whatever. But do you understand what I'm saying? Like, they completely missed the window of when to select a quarterback, in my opinion. Okay, because I really don't think that. Say what you want, and you can hound me whatever you want. My Twitter is right there. You can see it. I don't care. I don't think that Kenny Pickett should have been drafted by the Pittsburgh Steelers. Okay, I just don't. I think they should have drafted the quarterback the year before. I understand, I get it, with Ben and all that other stuff, and I get it, but the smart thing would have been to draft a quarterback in a year when there was good quarterbacks to draft, instead of drafting a quarterback in a year when not so good quarterbacks were there, and now you're hanging your entire franchise on this kid. Okay, and that's not fair to Kenny Pickett. That's not fair to Matt Canada. Okay, and that's not fair to the fans, because now you're hanging all this onto this kid to be successful. Look, you're talking about the Pittsburgh Steelers. Historically, this franchise has the second most Super Bowl wins ever. They got the second number of guys in the Hall of Fame ever. Yeah. This is a historic franchise. This franchise does nothing but win. City of Champions, right?
Yeah. No, I hear that.
Okay.
Gage, what do you think? Gage, what do you think? If I ask you right now, you've probably been the most pro Canada and moderately pro Pickett over the time we've been going through this. Just initial, just top of your head, was drafting Kenny Pickett a mistake at this point?
No, I don't think so. For one, getting the best quarterback in that draft at 20 was a pretty good
yeah. Deal. Oh, I agree, 100%.
But it's also I understand that he has a low touchdown percentage, but he also has a low good offensive coordinator percentage. So I think that's something we also have to keep in mind. And Kenny has just shown, I mean, the one thing you cannot take away from him, despite what Nate Washington and his stupid takes will tell you, that Kenny Pickett does have that ability to just kind of get it done when he needs to. And And I told you that like that last drive, that 3rd and 10 throw to Deontay Johnson that he missed was the entire difference in me sitting up here being like, oh, you know, we suck and we lost to the Browns, and me being up here and being like, ah, goddamn, Kenny did it again, like when it mattered. You know, most fourth quarter comebacks in the last 2 years of any quarterback. Like it, you know what I mean? That's how. I don't know. That's how fragile legacies can be. Like I mentioned at the top.
Okay, well, let's see. I dropped a poll in the chat here. I want to see how people, Master of
You're gonna
Engagement,
kill me.
was
I don't care. I'm
drafting
standing by it.
was drafting Pickett a mistake. I would be willing to bet that this will end up at about 55%.
50-50.
About 55% no. That's what I think.
Okay.
And it's it's
Okay.
we'll see
Look,
where
I
that
don't think that drafting him was a mistake. I'm not saying that drafting him was a mistake. What I'm saying is that they should have drafted a quarterback
Sure.
the year before.
Okay.
Okay. Don't get me wrong.
No,
I'm
fair.
not drafting quarterback Kenny at 20 was not because Gage at 20 is a steal because he's the best quarterback that was on the draft board. Period. End of story. And
I
they
agree.
needed a quarterback.
Yeah. No, you're absolutely right. I didn't mean to frame it like that's what you were saying. I'm just poking.
Yeah,
I'm just poking the bear. I'm on a hot streak here, annoying people and getting people to react. I'm just having fun. Like I want to get those clicks. But I also am interested to see just how people. I just want to see how people feel. Like I really do. Like I think this is just all very fascinating the way that this has begun to play out. And I realized I never answered the question as to whether or not or the percentage chance that I thought there's a different head coach in 2025. I will say 51% chance there's a different head coach at the start of 2025. I believe I think there's a non-zero chance. I think it just there eventually becomes a time where just you look around, and this is what I thought of today. I was texting with somebody, I can't remember, maybe one of you or somebody, or maybe in the Discord, which has been popping, by the way. If you're listening to this show right now and you like 5-star matchup, I can't recommend it enough. We're nearing like 100 Discords or Patreon supporters. The Discord is getting absolutely so much fun this season. If you want to hang out and talk ball with me any old time and the whole gang, hop over to patreon.com/5SMU and become a supporter, and you get access to the Discord server. We have so much fun chatting about stuff. But I was working through this today, and this is what I was thinking about, which is like, who on this team, right? If you really look this roster down, who on this team has any experience doing anything significant in the league with Mike Tomlin?
Chris Boswell being the second best kicker in the league.
I would say Cam Hayward, but even then, he really hasn't won anything. He's really
think
the
about
only
this.
longest
Cam
tenured
Hayward
under Chris Boswell.
Cam Hayward and Mike Tomlin are best buds. We know they love each other. But at the end of the day, if you were Cam Hayward, wouldn't you at some point start to say, geez, I'm going to go my whole career without getting anywhere?
Yep.
What if you're TJ Watt? What if you're TJ Watt and you're starting to look around and you're thankful for the 25,000 million, 10, whatever your paycheck is every week, and you love the Pittsburgh Steelers and you love the fans, and you take a look around and realize, well, shoot, I'm going to be 30 next year. What happens if Pickett gets another year and he stinks, and then we got to draft another quarterback, and then all of a sudden I'm 32 until that guy's capable of playing at a high level? I'm just saying, like, there's nobody left on this roster. Chris Boswell and Cam Hayward are the only ones I can think of off the top of my head. Yeah, they're the only ones that have ever even been to an AFC championship game with Tomlin. They're the only ones who have ever been a part of a playoff win with Mike Tomlin.
Tomlin. Yeah, right.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean,
that's bad.
So now that
coach.
No, I mean, but it's true when you look at it, like, you had that, I've always looked at this as like, I remember after the last Super Bowl and it had become a few years since we won, and you're looking and you're like, okay, like how many guys are left that were on the Super Bowl team? And you're like, Ben, Debo, William Gay, and it was a list of like a handful of people. And then suddenly it became Ben Roethlisberger. End of sentence. And now it's end of sentence, right?
Yes.
And so I just think it can get to a point where you start to say, like, where is this connective tissue to success anymore?
Mike relies on talent, and whenever his team isn't very talented, that's about as far as he goes. I mean, if we drafted, the next reincarnation of, I was going to say John Elway, but I don't even want that. But we draft the next reincarnation of Patrick Mahomes, I'm sure we would win a lot more. But he's a guy who, that's why I kind of resent the Andy Reid and Philly comparison, but I also use it myself, so I guess I'm a hypocrite in that regard. But because they're both terrible with clock management and both kind of get booed by the fans a lot. But Andy Reid was always an offensive mastermind, I would say. I mean, him and Donovan McNabb, before he even got Patrick Mahomes, absolutely dominated the league for like a decade. They were like one of the highest winning percentage teams of like the 2000s or whatever it was. Mike Tomlin, his defense is the 32nd ranked defense right now. Like he talks this big game and talks about like, oh, we're going to be top 5 unit in all fronts, running, passing, and scoring, and our defense kind of sucks. Our offense, I just feel like I'm repeating myself now. But
I hear you.
The standard rings hollow.
I hear you on that. But again, I'm willing to give the defense slack because this, when you have an offense that's going 3 and out,
40 second.
When you have it, I know, man. But when you have an offense that the first part of the season was going 3 and out more than 50% of the time, and it's still going 3 and out 45% of the time, I can't ask a defense that's built on pass rush. And, I can't ask you to be that consistently good. I don't think that the Steelers, they haven't performed to their potential defensively, but they've given them a shot in just about every game this year. Really, the only one where the defense got absolutely blown up was the Texans game. Even the Niners game. Yeah, but again, you're playing one of the best teams in the league, and the Steelers had 7 points in the first half. At some point, you gotta have I can't put that on the defense. There are gonna be games where you have to score 28 points in the NFL. I mean, it's just it's just gonna be the case. You're never beating Cincinnati. I'll tell you, the luckiest thing that ever happened to Mike Tomlin's streak this year was that Joe Burrow got knocked out, because with this team, with the way this offense is, there was no chance they were going to beat Cincinnati this year, and they still had 2 games left against them. There was no chance they were going to beat Burrow. No I would have bet my 401k on it. There's no chance they would have. No way. And now they should beat them twice, and then that's going to be the thing that kind of artificially maybe ends up inflating the record. I don't know. I mean, hey, look, I'll give Tomlin credit if this was truly his decision and this is truly what he wanted to do. By the way, that poll is at 56 and 44%. So do I know my audience or do I know my audience? That's exactly how I thought it would play out.
Exactly.
No, I don't know. Let me see what I have. I might have something else in my notes. Did you have something? Or is somebody going to say something?
All I was going to say, when exactly with what you were saying with Steve, with this defense, they're a bend but don't break. Mm-hmm. I agree with you, Gage, 100%, that when you look at it statistically, there's a lot of bending, right? A lot of bending. Statistically, they are one of the worst defenses in the league, okay? But here's one of the other things that you have to look at for the defense. They also lead the league in takeaways, okay? The problem with it is this: defense giving the offense opportunities, but the offense never capitalizes on those opportunities. So, and then we heard the same thing we heard from Tomlin. Well, the defense is on the field a lot. Okay, well, so how do you get your defense from being out on the field a lot, your offense out on the field more? Okay, so that's this whole thing. Here we are now. We're 10 years now since he's won a Super Bowl. It's been how many years now since we've won a playoff game? We consistently over 5 years have gone into December and lost significant games to where we don't make the playoffs. Okay. Uh, well, I just, at some point, you got to be at that where it needs to be a new message. It needs to be a new voice. It needs to be some new blood. And I think the Steelers are past that time now. And it's hurting the team because they are past that time, because they're still trying to go on, trying to keep the magic. They're still trying to win, whatever you want. When Michael Harris retired, right? He didn't retire with the Steelers. He was a team.
Yeah.
The Steelers didn't want to pay him, so he jumped ship and went to another team and played for Seattle. Okay. And how many players have we, not just with the Pittsburgh Steelers, but the entire throughout all of time, that they felt, hey, I something left in the tank, I can still do it, and they go play for a team, right? And then they realize, whoop, grass isn't always on the other.
Anybody remember Ed Reed playing in a
oh.
Texans jersey?
No.
I mean, and all you have to do is say Le'Veon Bell.
Yeah.
But I mean, Y.A. Tittle, Joe Montana did it. All these great guys, most of all these great players, even Giannis didn't finish his career. Colts. I mean, you know what I'm saying, right? I think kind of it's unfortunate that happens, but we can't do that with a coach.
Right.
Right? A coach doesn't get that, hey, I got one more year left in me. Yeah, no. When it's time for the coach to go, that has to be the case. I think that has to be the case here with the Pittsburgh Steelers. It's time for a new era. It's time for a new voice. Thank you, Mike, for everything done for this team. Man, I really just need this voice. Okay, I really do. You pointed out on numerous occasions, keep doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different result, and the isn't coming.
Yeah.
So how much more times do you need to bang your head up against the wall before you realize that, hey, man, I'm banging my head up against this wall, and gosh, man, it starts, At point, the blood's going to start coming down your face, and you're going to realize, hey, I think I broke something, because you're banging your head up against. When do we get to that point? How soon can we get to that point? I think this whole Matt Canada thing, whether it came from Rooney or who, we all came from Rooney, to be honest with you, right? I think you nailed it on the head, Steve. Rooney is getting impatient because he's not getting any younger. Okay, and more of his relatives are passing away, and he wants to be able to hoist that Lombardi trophy, and he hasn't been able to do so yet.
That's a really good point. Legacy speaking, like he is looking lesser than his father and his grandfather at this point, right? Yeah, that's bold, but I like it. What say ye,
I
Gage?
mean, what else can you do? What else can you do, right?
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm trying really hard not to repeat myself here, but I feel like the standard has kind of rung hollow for a little while now. I mean, I think that the big day that changed, I think that, no joke, that 2017 playoff loss to the Patriots, where the players found Mike crying afterwards, which, I'm not shaming him for. It was a huge game and it was a huge loss. That game, that story always spoke to me in a weird way, and I don't know if you guys feel the same way, but it feels like that game might have I don't know. I don't know if Mike has that competitive fire to get to those AFC Championship games or to get to a Super Bowl. He seems content to me. Maybe I'm just hypercritical.
No,
he seems
I can't.
To me.
I can't say that because
That's
I think
a great point.
I don't know. I can't say that because I do think he's still determined, and I'm never gonna question his.
Why? What makes you say that?
Because of the way he talks and the way that he tries to build this team throughout the year. He's been talking this year about he likes the way that the guys are responding in situations, and he thinks they're becoming a gritty group. And, I think that he still has that determination. But I will say that the results just ultimately haven't been there for a number of years now, and whether they can resume being there. We'll see. I don't know. I mean, I think obviously like they're not going to fire Mike Tomlin. I think he'll 100% be the head coach next year. But it will be interesting to see if he stays beyond that. There might come, much like what's probably going to happen with the Patriots this offseason, there might come a point where they all just kind of get together and say like, hey, maybe it's just, best for all parties if we move on. I know people have said it for years about Tomlin, but if I was him, man, go the Cowher route. Tomlin would kill it on TV. He would be the number one paid color guy in 5 minutes. 5 minutes.
Never do it.
I know. But I mean, I'm just saying, honest truth. He would be phenomenal on TV. Absolutely. Did you hear him today? He said, we're not urinating on the fire. Come on. I can't even turn over phrases as good as him. And I do it for a living. This guy is unbelievable with the way he talks and the way he can come up with words. And I just, to me, whatever. I'm not like... I'm not anti-Tomlin. I'm not starting like a directive there. But I do.
Not either.
What's that?
Well, he went to William and Mary College, right?
Yeah, he's a smart guy. I mean, obviously. Yeah.
That's why I'm saying you don't just go to William and Mary College and not be. He's a wordsmith.
No, he's
exactly what he is.
He's a great leader, and like his own quote earlier today, leadership is a lonely place. And I hear that, and that resonates with me. I get it. All of this stuff ultimately falls on him, and I'm not going to be willing to knock his commitment or his energy or any of that stuff. I still believe his head is 100% in the game. I just think that I think that it's hard to argue at this point that his loyalty to Matt Canada is the biggest. Yeah, I think I would say it's the biggest black mark on his resume as a head coach. This guy has been inconceivably terrible the whole time that he's been here. By almost any metric, he's going to end up being maybe the worst offensive coordinator in Steelers history. And that's saying a lot for some teams that were terrible in the 1940s and 50s and all that kind of stuff. Just...
He did one through the middle.
Yeah, and I think, depending on what happens, we got to be real. Depending on what happens with Pickett the rest of this year and what happens with Pickett next year and all that kind of stuff, we could end up saying that keeping Canada for an extra year after a little bit of I'll bring back a word that people wanted to kill me for using last week because I was making fun of people. But we might be saying that little 7-2 finish last year, that fool's gold of a finish, could have led to like maybe the biggest mistake in the Steelers have made in the front office in the last 30 or 40 years. If you really think Canada ruined Kenny Pickett, if anybody is under that assumption, and by the way, this is a guy that if we talked in the preseason, there is no way that 60% of the people in this chat would have voted yes, Kenny Pickett. Oh, no, Kenny Pickett was not a mistake. So I'll give the people credit. They actually voted the opposite way than what I expected. But still, 40% of people are voting that drafting Kenny Pickett was a mistake. And if you asked in the preseason, that would have been like 85-15,
Oh, right. Yeah.
So I'm just saying, if you do think that in any way, shape, or form, Matt Canada has inhibited or limited Kenny Pickett's growth, then this whole stretch here, this last 8 months, is a really bad period of time for the Pittsburgh Steelers, regardless of what the record is. Because Kenny Pickett, I don't think people, even the brightest of us, even the people that like him the most, I think we all have to admit we feel worse than we did 4 months ago, don't we?
That's true. There's one thing that you mentioned though about Mike Tomlin, about him having that in that fire, and I believe with what you said, Gage, too, about after the 2017 game, there was a decidedly different view of Mike Tomlin from that point on. There was something different about him, the way he's coached, he's approached, what he said in his press conferences, and how he's approached. He's all about the process. Listen to what man is talking to you about. Listen to what he's telling you, what he loves, what he lives for. He said on so many different occasions how much he just loves to go to the stadium and soak in the fact that he's there at the stadium, play the freaking game. Okay? He, look, after that 20 thing, I definitely agree with you, man. He's not the drive there, but it's not to win a championship. He's already climbed that mountain. He doesn't need to prove that anymore. Okay? But he's just there for the process. He likes drafting guys. He likes evaluating guys. He practice. You can tell he likes practice. Because Troy Polamalu came out and said when Mike Tomlin first came to the team, the first thing that he did was establish the fact that this is going to be a hard practice. You're going to sweat. You're going to work. And get it's been like that ever since he's been here.
Yeah.
Okay? So these are the kinds of things that I'm talking about when it comes to Mike Tomlin. Okay?
Very
Yeah.
well said.
And
Very well said. And to kind of piggyback off of that is that I think that, like, should the time come where Mike Tomlin has a losing season before he decides to retire, I guarantee you I would bet my left shoe that people will go out there and they'll be like, oh, those spoiled Steeler fans, they have one
Your
losing
left
season.
shoe, here
now
you
they
go.
want Mike, yeah, now they had one losing season and now they want Mike Tomlin gone, like completely ignoring all the shit that we've been complaining about for the last decade or so since the Tebow game, basically. It's just one of those things where I feel like we've been on God damn it, Steve, I hate to borrow your phrase again, but it feels like we've been on a hamster wheel, and we've been on it for quite some time, to your point. But I really love how you said that, though, that he loves the process and he's passionate about the process, but I don't think he has championship drive anymore. I just don't.
Yeah, it does. It at some point it does feel like now it's been a long time that the whole of the team has been like this. I think the shift for me really happened in that 2019 season, which I can't stop thinking about right now because I am so reminded of it this year. This team is so remarkably similar. That game this week was, I mean, that was like any number of Duck Hodges games in 2019 where you're sitting there saying, man,
Yeah.
this defense is giving
Only.
this defense. I mean, I just kept saying this week, I was like, man, you can't ask your defense to do any more than that. First quarter, like, yeah, I was bummed they gave up a touchdown, but you know what? Even after 10-0, the Steelers, any passable offense in this league, and I'm talking like Jimmy Garoppolo Raiders, okay? Any passable offense had every opportunity to win that game like 24-10. I mean, I'm not even kidding. Even after it was 10-0. It's just they gave themselves no opportunity and no chance. And, I don't know. I just think that I don't know. I can't question Tomlin's drive. I can't question his desire. But it does seem like since the Roethlisberger injury, this team has gone from, remember him in 2017? He took a lot of heat for when he said like, oh, well, we're going to see those guys again down the line, i.e. the Patriots, because we're going to get to the AFC Championship and beat them again. Yeah. I haven't seen that guy in a long time. What I'm seeing now is the guy who's afraid to blame his young quarterback because he's protecting his offensive coordinator and he's presiding over this stuff that, like, I'll say this. This is my honest opinion. I was listening to sports radio every day in 2015, 2016. I was working from home, video editor, listening to Killer Bees. It was must listen to content every single week. You had no idea, is Le'Veon going to show up from the holdout? Is AB going to say something about getting the ball more? Is Martavis Bryant going to throw Juju under the bus? I mean, it was must-see TV. It was so much drama every single week. But I'll be honest. I don't think one player in that period of time said anything approaching how incendiary Najee Harris's comments were after this game this week. I honestly believe that. And I also honestly believe he was not just speaking from like his point of view. I don't think it was that he was
speaking
mad.
to the offense.
I think he was just going to be the guy who realized I have to say this, because I think he knew that one, Deontay Johnson is not that guy. Kenny Pickett is not that guy. He doesn't have the stature. He hasn't achieved anything in the NFL yet. Mason Cole's going to say that? Again, who are the leaders on this team? Who are the leaders on the offensive side of the ball? Can somebody tell me again why Najee Harris was a captain last year and then they made him not a captain this year? That's another thing I want to ask some questions about, because the guy's clearly captain material. Why'd you strip him of it? And if he's mad about that, I can't really blame him, because he's been an exemplary leader in that locker room. But anyway, I just think that was the most eloquent, well-spoken guy on the offense saying, you know what, I'm tired of this. I'm tired of running into a brick wall every day, and I'm tired of getting kneecapped on 3rd and 3 because everybody on the defense knows that you're going to throw a little pattern to the running back. That sequence I pointed out in the show this week with Naj, where that was like 2nd and 2, and they had him run up the gut, brick wall, nowhere to go, and then on 3rd and 2, he flipped it out to him, and everyone in the world knew that was coming, and he got crunched immediately. He had no chance to even turn around before he got hit. I wouldn't blame him one bit for being annoyed, but I don't think that's where he was coming from. I think he just really had enough, and I think he realized that, Pickens, Deontay, Kenny, these guys they're not the people to do that. They're not, there's no Roethlisberger on this team. And I think that it really points to bigger signs that there are bigger issues. That other line that Pickett had, or Najee had, about like there's stuff that goes on that you guys don't even see. What is that supposed to mean? Is he talking about Matt Canada? Is he talking about Mike Tomlin? Is he talking about Kenny Pickett? I don't know, man. I can't get off it.
You keep making my point for me. I don't have to say anything, dude. Everybody asks, well, why do you feel the way you do about Tomlin? Why do you feel the way you do about this? Man, you keep making my point for me, dude. I don't have to say anything, man, because those very reasons. That to me is...
Listen, we've never had a losing season.
Okay, great. Well, not having a season is not putting Lombardi's in the office, is it?
Well said.
Yeah, it's just it's interesting times. I think it's going to be very telling to see how they move forward this week. Clearly, Mike is still expecting the same level of, he has the same level of expectation.
I don't know how you can expect the same level with that. Hey, man, what do I know, right? I'm just a guy talking.
Listen, all you gotta do is cobble a win together. Suddenly you're 7-4, and that you move forward. I don't know. I know, but all you gotta do is keep moving forward.
That's like running over a manhole cover and then getting penalized for doing so because it damaged your car. I'm sorry, I had to make that Formula One reference there because our good friend is in the chat here.
Oh, Jimena?
And he was yeah, she was commenting on the she said that, I'm telling you, man, and so we had a back and forth. So
well, I just want to say this has been a spectacular show. The most of the time we've been in here, we were hovering around 190 people listening. The watch time on this is going to be killer. It's really darn bad that YouTube doesn't let me get ad revenue, because we would have made a lot of money today.
I could have seen the number of donations for this show would have probably...
I know.
Would have been phenomenal.
I know. But if you want to help fill in that gap a little bit, please do consider going over to patreon.com. I'll type it in here. It's patreon.com /5SMU. We appreciate the support. Every little bit goes a long way. If you can sign up for $4 or $7 a month, you get a free welcome gift and all that kind of stuff. And blah 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 blah. But
Get to be in the Discord. You get Steve. You get to wake him up with all your great stuff. Plus, you guys get members only access to the great stuff that Gage and Five Star put together, man. And I'll tell you what, man, this is some of the best Steelers content going, man. If you guys don't sign up for that, man, you're missing out, man. Hop on over to Patreon.com/5SMU. Get signed up for $4 a month. It's $48 a year, man. That's in a cup of coffee a day, right? Come on, man, for a 50 spot to get all this content, man. Seriously, how can you not do it, man?
I couldn't say it better myself. But yeah, I mean, thank you guys for a tremendous showing today. I hope you had fun. Again, none of this is, I no one knows the answers. We're all just here to talk about it and have a good
Thanks
time.
for throwing it together, huh?
Yeah.
Right? We all kind of were like, hey, let's do this show together today. We're like, all right, let's do it together, right?
All right. Well, let's just real quick go around the circle. Gage, what do you want to leave the folks with before we get out of here?
I have no idea how Eddie Faulkner is going to be as OC, but it's probably going to be better than Matt Canada. Who knows? Maybe we'll promote from within. No, that phrase has so much baggage now. I don't even want to say it. But I'm excited. This is the best loss the Steelers have had since Kenny Pickett lost to the Jets in his debut. So I don't think it's too bad. I think that there's a lot to look forward to, and I don't know. Maybe our defense will be it'll be better than 32nd by the end of it. Fingers crossed. So you can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Gage Ryan Video. I'm going to have my episode of Let's Watch Pittsburgh come out probably tomorrow if I had to guess. And then you guys will also see soon there's going to be another piece that involves Michael Vick being our quarterback. So that should be a lot of fun there. It'll be about 12, 13 minutes, I think. So that's about it.
All right. Yeah. Steel Flyers?
You gotta check him out, man. You gotta check out this video. You gotta check out 5 Star. I mean, look, this is it's a 5-star matchup because these two guys are in it and they're putting it together for you guys. So you gotta for sure stop on over and get joined up and get in there and get some of that great stuff, man, because Steve puts out the great show every week, and then Gage and all the other videos you guys do, man, all the little shorts that you got. It's all awesome stuff, man. Thank you very much for allowing me to even be part of this. I'm so very so thankful that you guys allow me to get in here and talk my craziness and be the crazy one in here and all this, you know what I mean? Old head, whatever y'all want to call me, I don't care. I'm just thankful to be here. So see it on the screen behind me. Go to steelflyers.com. Go check me out, man, for sure. You can follow me on Twitter at SteelFlyers52. We cover hockey, we cover football, we cover college football, we do prospects for hockey. We got a great show called Prospect Watch where we interview some of the top prospects out in the world today. They're not household, but they soon will be. We guys lined up for the Prospect Watch coming up this week. So we got top goalies that we're going to be doing. So hop on over to Steel Flyers. Also check me out on YouTube. Hop on over there and join in there and see what you can do for that. I really appreciate that. Thank you guys very much for having me on the show, man. Thank you so very much, man. This has been awesome. This was awesome.
It has been a blast. Gentlemen, we've done 2 hours. It's been 2 hours and 5 minutes. And so
wow.
the lead in is 5 minutes. So that means we did 2 hours of content. That's absolutely awesome. The guy in the chat, by the way, yes, that was me in the Tomlin press conference in the chat. That's how I roll. If you ever see me interacting on stuff and you're like, oh, is that really? Yeah, it's really me. I'm just a person. This is not like a company. Like what you see is what you get. We are the totality of it. And our insane social editor, Frayne, who shows up from time to time. But it's
love what Frayne does, man.
He's unbelievable.
Dude.
Yeah.
I'm telling you what, man. I need to have that guy working for me, man.
No, he's unbelievable. And the way he makes the clip outs of the show and everything, I love it. Yeah,
it's awesome.
No, and it's stuff I don't have time to do. So yeah, but that's what you see. What you see is what you get. It's really the 4 of us. And so, but anytime you see 5 Star speaking first person like that, it's me. It's always me, you know? But anyway, yeah, you guys, you're the best. If you want to hop over to Patreon, please do it. I would appreciate it. I see there's 89 likes in this chat, so close to 100. If you haven't hit that like yet, go hit it. Get us close to 100 before we get out of here live. I know we'll make it after the fact, but just for my little OCD, give me a hundo. Love you guys. Thank you so much for the support as per usual. I hope you have a luxurious night of rest with the news that Matt Canada is unemployed. And I hope everyone has a great Thanksgiving. And I will see you down the road on the next edition of